Good afternoon and welcome back to the Klingspor's 20th Annual Woodworking Extravaganza.
Yeah, if you don't know by now, my name is Chris, and this sidekick over here is Mike.
Yes, and today we are bringing you our first ever virtual event for the Extravaganza, and today we are joined with Sam from Earlex.
How you doing, guys?
Welcome, Sam. Thank you for joining us and talking about the Earlex spray station systems.
Happy to do it. Glad to be here.
So we are running sales all throughout the rest of this week, which is also the end of the month. And one of the things that we have is the Earlex system. You have? Oh, you do? You ready?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Lead us through the website, Chris.
All right, so currently we've got it listed in a couple of places. So, if you go into the finishing department, if you're looking for the spray station, the 5500, we do have that listed. If you go into finishing, and then you can sort by manufacturer, and there will be the Earlex. You'll see the needles for the 5 series there, and the cleaning kit as well. And so if you wanted to see those, they're all right there. The other location you could find some of the other options would be under shop by brand, and then under manufacturer Earlex, you'll see those. So we've got all of their systems there. This is the 6003, the HVLP, as well as some of the different tubes and options there. And we've thrown this in just for fun, just so you know that, hey, it's a finishing product. Use that between coats finish.
Very good. What are the big differences between the 5000 series or the 5500 and the 6003?
Sure. So the 5500 is a two-stage, meaning there are 2 fans on the turbine moving air. So this unit produces 2.25 psi at about 42 CFM. If you're a guy that wants to spray a lot of thicker materials like a latex paint, you'd be happier with more power. So the 6003 will do that. It's got a 3-stage motor. And it's producing about 5.5 psi at 90 CFM. So it's a lot more air, a lot more pressure.
Okay. Any differences in the guns?
Yeah, so the rest of the differences are going to be physical, right? So on the 5500, you've got a 13-foot hose. It has friction fit ends on it. They just slide into an opening and lock in place. On the 6003, you've got a 25-foot hose with quick connect at the gun, and a regular garden hose fitting at the turbine. So they're a positive lock. They never come off. Plus, it's a 25-foot hose, so a little more flexibility on the bigger projects. The guns on the 5500, that is the gun. The L150 is a terrific gun, honestly. It's very simple. There's one control on it. Basically, you control the amount of fluid coming out of the gun. The airflow is a constant, never changes. So it's the most basic of guns, but it's a professional style gun. Stainless steel needle and nozzle. Everything else is aluminum. The cup comes with a non-stick surface so that it's easy to clean out water-based finishes quickly. On the 6003, you have an option of guns. You've got the pressure-fed gun, which the cup is on the bottom, or you've got a gravity-fed gun where the cup is on the top. And again, this is just a physical difference. You're not getting a better finish out of either one. Some of you guys may have been automotive painters. You're probably used to using a gravity feed gun. Stick with that. We make that for woodworking too. But typically for woodworkers, they're going to use a pressure-fed gun where the cup's on the bottom. Because if I'm spraying cabinet doors and I got 20 doors to do, I want to be able to set that gun down easily, move a door, get right back to work. So just a couple of physical differences like that, but otherwise both very top quality guns on these systems.
Cool. Okay. Which one are you more of a fan of, siphon or gravity?
Well, being a woodworker, I've used pressure-fed my whole life. You put a gravity gun in my hand, my wrist hurts in about 5 minutes. So that's why I say if you're a guy that's been using a gravity-fed all these years and you're looking for something to do, woodworking with, stick with the gravity-fed. That's fine. It's not a quality difference. It's just physical. It's how you hold it and how you work with things. For me, that doesn't work. I'm used to the pressure-fed, sticking with that.
Gotcha. And then Earlex does have a tube that goes into the cup to help pressurize the pot to get the fluid out on the siphon, right?
Right. Okay. So the word siphon doesn't really apply here because there is no siphon. These are all pressurized cups. Okay. That clear tube on the side of the gun is where a small amount of air bleeds off the main line and is going forced down into the cup. That creates pressure inside the cup, which pushes paint up the pickup tube. Pickup tube is a misnomer. There's no suction, there's no siphon, there's no pickup. It's forced up there by about 10% of the overall pressure of the unit.
Okay.
So again, a very simple system. Air basically goes in a loop through the gun and pushes paint out when it gets to the other end. Not a whole lot of things can go wrong with a gun like that.
Good. Well, it's good to know, because we have a thing going on with the other company, Fuji, where one of the technicians is a pressure pot type system with the siphon style look, and the other one's all gravity. So I was just curious what your preference was.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
it's a personal thing.
Yep. That work. That's what theirs is too. And for me, I'm more of a gravity fed guy. I just have done that all these years, and I like that better. So, but I can use either one. It's just, I go towards gravity.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's check out the video you have made.
For those of you that have never sprayed before, I'm going to give you a few simple spray techniques that'll make your job go a lot smoother. Now, this is different from brushing or rolling in that you don't go over the same area again and again. It's a smooth, constant, even application of material. That's what makes spray finishing so much nicer than brushing or rolling. So I'm going to turn on my 5500 spray station, and I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to spray this simple flat board. Now, it's not a wrist movement, so you do not twist your wrist when spraying. The reason you don't do that is that when you're here, you're actually farther from the project than when you're here. What it is a simple, straight, even application. So let me show you how that works. What you want to do is pull the trigger when you're off your project, spray across, and when you exit your project, release. The reason you want to do that is so that you don't get any extra buildup on the edges. If I were to start here pulling my trigger, I get more paint in that section than I do in this section. So it's an even, constant movement across the board. Now, on some projects, you'll go in both directions. We call this a crosshatch pattern. What that does is it gives you the ability to evenly coat everything you're trying to get to.
Very good. You look a little different now.
So that's Fat Sam there. That's 70 pounds ago. And I had a little bit more hair and a little less beard. So yeah, that's fun to watch. That's about 10 years ago now.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you used white in that to kind of show how it was spraying, because a lot of times other manufacturers use clear, and the only way you can tell what was applied is by sheen.
Right. Yeah, you can't see anything. I've been demonstrating for so many years. You can't spray and demonstrate with a clear. You can't see what's actually happening. So I always use some kind of colored paint or a polyurethane, something like that people can actually see what's going down. But it does look good. You can see how nice and smooth that sprayer sprays on there. I mean, that's the 5500 with basically latex paint. I believe that paint was thin 10% with water.
Nice.
That's about it. Not altering it a whole lot. Sprays real nice.
Now, what size tip do you recommend for someone who wants to spray latex paint?
All right, so this kind of goes in a couple different directions. We'll talk about what the project is along with that. When I sell this unit to a house painter and he wants to do the trim with it, what he wants to do is leave the bigger needle in there, which is going to be the 2 millimeter. That's what comes with the system in the gun. He doesn't want to thin his latex paint if he can avoid it. He wants to spray one coat and he wants to move on to the next project. All right. I'm a cabinet maker. I'm a fine finisher. I'm all about the finish. So what matters to me is the end result, not the speed at which I get there. For me, I would rather thin the paint slightly, like I'm talking, 5 to 10% with latex paint. I would use the 1.5 millimeter needle, which is the extra needle that comes in this kit. That's going to give you a finer atomization and a better looking finish overall. Now, I might do 2, 3, 4, or 5 coats. I'm going to do what it takes to get that finish I'm looking for. I'm not in a rush to do it. And coverage is not a word that ever comes out of my mouth. Quality of application is what HVLP is all about.
Okay.
Very good.
So it comes with a 2 millimeter, and you said a 1.5.
1.5 is the extra needle in the kit. That's for any fine finishing. So basically, I would say, if you're doing trim or outdoor cabinet or, for furniture, bench, that kind of stuff, you might get away with the 2. It might leave a slight bumpy texture, edging towards orange peel, but not too bad. If you want the fine finish, like you want on interior type furniture and cabinetry, you really have to go with the 1.5, and it doesn't matter what the fluid is you put in the gun.
Okay. What is, if someone is used to spraying with an air compressor, let's say a small one, a 20 gallon or something, what would be a benefit of getting a turbine system versus a regular pneumatic?
Sure. So high pressure systems have a couple of inherent issues. First of all, when you use an air compressor, it's not just compressing the air, it compresses the moisture in the air and any oils or contamination that might be in the air or that's actually in the tank. And once that air gets sent through to the gun, it can carry that stuff with it and totally ruin the finish. So an air compressor is not an ideal setup for fine finishing. If you're spraying some stuff occasionally, it's not too bad. But the other issue with an air compressor, like you said, a 20-gallon tank, it's just not going to keep up. If I have a full kitchen of cabinets that I need to spray, I'm probably going to destroy the air compressor through it just constantly running while I'm spraying in order to finish that much material. Now, if I've got an 80-gallon tank and 5 horsepower and an industrial unit, yeah, that's going to keep up with spraying like that. But just about anything you're going to buy at the local store is not really going to keep up with a spraying situation. That's why turbines are ideal. They're meant to run all day. All right, a lot of guys call these, reverse vacuum cleaners. I always say, think of it more as a jet engine on your airplane, right? You wouldn't want your turbine jet engine to crap out in the middle of the flight, just like you don't want this to crap out in the middle of your project. Your air compressor is at some point going to run out of air. Your pressure drops off. So does your spray pattern. That's one of the most upsetting things you can ever have happen when you're spraying with an air compressor. With a turbine, it can't happen like that. It's a constant flow of air. It never changes pressure or CFM. It's constant.
Okay.
That's the beauty of turbines.
And then basically it's just your extension cord and however long your hose is and all of that, range.
That's it. Yeah, you can see on the 5500, it's a beautiful compact little system. That's why guys like it so much. I believe it has an 8-foot electric cord on it. Maybe it's 6 foot, but that wraps around the very bottom of it. The hose itself, the 13-foot air hose, wraps up inside it, as you see there. You've got it wrapped up exactly the way I store it, with the hose stuck into the back of the gun. That's how it sits on my shelf waiting for me to use next time. The 6003 being a little bit more of a cabinet shop type unit, a little more professional, it's not as cutesy. It doesn't have the storage compartment. It's basically 3 pieces. It's a turbine, a hose, and a gun. I use a Rubbermaid storage bin, put them all in there, put the lid on it, carry it with 2 handles. It goes everywhere I want pretty easily. So they're both pretty compact systems and easy to move around.
Very cool.
Yeah, I can see where this unit would be more really suitable well for like your contractor or your job site applications, where you'd need something to where you could store it in a van and then pull it out. If you needed to paint trim, or if you were painting a fence or a deck or staining a deck, something like that.
Sure. So this is how I actually came into the company, was that I had a cabinet shop, and back in the day, I actually built custom cabinetry for almost 30 years. And the market crashed, all kinds of stuff happened. I was looking for something different to do. And this company had this little unit out. They were selling it at woodcraft stores and, magazines and stuff. And I thought, well, let me try that. I had a customer that had, the granite guys kept scratching my end panels, right? All the granite guys come out, they scratch the end panels of my cabinets. I had to take the end panels off, take them back to the shop. I bought this unit so that I could go on the job site and just spray a single end panel with some lacquer.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to be able to do that. I didn't want to do anything else. I was looking for something compact. Again, I don't want to drag my big system out. I don't want to carry an air compressor into somebody's house. I need minimal overspray. I need a lot of control. So I bought the original version of this. It was actually called the 5000 back then. It was a little bit weaker unit. But I took it out, sprayed that end cap on the base cabinet. It took me 15 minutes to tape it off, put a drop cloth down, spray it. I didn't move anything else. I didn't take any furniture away. I was done in 15 minutes. Customer thought that was amazing. She asked me if I could paint the crown molding that was installed. I looked at it. I gave her a $1,200 price and got the job.
Very cool.
So I was sold. At that point, I thought, geez, if your customer likes the tools you're using, there's something good about this tool. Okay, so that was my first experience with them. When things needed to change in my life and I was looking for something different to do, they were looking for somebody to demonstrate their products, and I've been with them 12 years now.
Very cool. Do you have anything to show us today right there, like one of the guns and some of the features or anything along those lines?
Sure. So I got the 5500 gun right here. Again, this is a very simple gun. It's very basic. There's one knob on the back of the gun. Oh, missing my camera. All right. And this controls the amount of fluid coming out of the gun. There is no air control. The airflow is a constant. Once you turn the machine on, air is exiting the gun. This is called a bleeder gun. That means air is always bleeding out of the gun. Our 6003 unit, that's a non-bleeder gun. So we'll talk about that. But this is different. This is a bleeder gun. So where the hose plugs into the back here, and again, it's just a friction fit, the air basically goes straight through the gun, comes out the air cap here. The fluid is in the cup below. Here's the clear pressure tube on the gun. So this is where, I'll turn around here, this is where the air comes down this tube, goes into the cup, pressurizes the cup, pushes paint up the pickup tube. Again, that's a misnomer. It's not picking up. It's actually being forced up there. Fluid comes up this tube. Now this fluid is in here and it goes straight out. The paint and the air mix outside the gun. A lot of people think that happens inside the gun, and they're always looking for a problem when something's going wrong inside the gun. That isn't necessarily what's going on. The air comes out here, the paint comes out the dead center hole, that's the nozzle in the center, and it mixes right here in front of the gun. So that's how you get your atomization, is the airflow basically blasting the paint into little tiny droplets. One of the most common issues with any spraying system is spitting. And it's very common with HVLP because we're working at low pressures. So we can't just crank up the pressure and atomize just about anything we put in there. We're operating at this one at 2.25 PSI. So in order to control the spit, what we're doing is reducing the fluid in the air. And since we have no airflow control, we only have fluid control. Again, how simple is this? There's one knob on the gun, guys. Increase it, decrease it. That's all you have to do until the spit goes away. Now, the front of the gun has the air cap that rotates into 3 positions. All right. You've got your vertical fan, which is this way right now. When it's at the 45-degree angle, that gives you your detail pattern, which is a round circle. That's the smallest pattern. That's how you're going to attain the smallest pattern. Up and down now, that gives you your horizontal fan. So this would be for spraying up and down. And then again, at that 45, you get that detail pattern again. So basically, it's 3 settings, 3 patterns. That's the whole gun, guys. That's all there is to it. Very simple.
So there's no fan control knob on the side. Instead, you're actually turning the nozzle, or not the nozzle, but you're turning the front part.
Right. Exactly. That just clicks into place. Most standard air compressor guns operate just like this. It kind of is, it's on a little spring, and you just push in slightly and twist, and it slips into the next indent to hold it in place.
See, I think it's a pretty cool feature that you have those options. You can shoot vertically, horizontally, or you can do a detail pattern, all by simply just, adjusting that.
Sure. You got to have at least that amount of control on any gun you're using, or you really can't utilize it for fine finishing. There are a lot of airless guns that don't have controls like that are great for spraying the side of a building, and that's frankly what they're intended for. this is not really intended for spraying the side of a building, although I have. But, you know, once you own a sprayer, you want to find out what it'll do, right? So you just keep using it on stuff, especially if your wife's encouraging you.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, this is a real easy gun to use and figure out.
So what's the largest project you sprayed with the 5500?
So, I'm a cabinet guy, and while I've painted a few houses in my day, you know, my own, some customers, I've always used a big airless system. And, you know, that's what they're designed for. Draw paint out of a 5-gallon bucket and throw it at a house and, you know, get the job done in a day and move on. So I've done that quite a bit. Well, when we're going back to my roots here, when I first started pitching Earlex and people would ask me if they could paint their house with it, I would say, you know, yeah, you can, but it's not really designed for that, and it's more of a fine finisher. And, you know, the boss heard me say that, and he challenged me. He said, I want you to paint your house with it. And I said, well, my house doesn't really need painting. He said, I'll pay for the paint. Okay. So, you know, I'm easy. I can be bought. So he bought me paint. So I thought back to when I originally painted a house. It took me 11 gallons, all right, and I used an airless. And I spent 3 days on it because you spend about 3/4 of a day trimming hedges and bushes and clearing stuff away and taping off windows. You spend about half a day cleaning up all that mess at the end of the job too. So, you know, it's about a 2.5 day project anyway with the airless. 11 gallons of paint. So he gave me, you know, money. I went and I bought 12 gallons of paint. And I thought, you know, this will work. I'll do this. I got my weekends. I'll do this. And what everybody says to me at first about this is, you know, you have to keep refilling the cup. And I'm like, yeah, what you figure out really quickly is that you empty that cup in about 15 to 20 minutes of pulling the trigger. And you really want to take a 1.5 minute break to pop the cup off, drop it down, pour paint in it, put the lid back on, and go right back to work. Now, was that so difficult? I didn't find it difficult. I found it actually relaxing. It gave me my hand a break in between spraying. And you know what? You start to realize this cup goes farther than you think it'll go. You're not getting any overspray. I didn't put the first piece of tape or a drop cloth down. I used a shield, all right, basically a piece of cardboard. Okay, and I sprayed to that edge up against all my windows. Anytime I was turning a corner, I'd hold it up against the soffit to prevent the soffit from getting sprayed. Guys, it blew me away. It still took me the 2.5 to 3 days to do it, but I had like 10 minutes of setup, 10 minutes of cleanup, no overspray, nothing I had to go back and fix. You know, nobody's mad. There was no paint on a car across the street. Yeah. You know, so there's, again, I'm not saying this is ideal. This is not what we make them for. I'm not telling you, go paint your office building with an HVLP. It's not the deal, okay? But if you own it, you can do it. And if it's your house, it makes sense. And it didn't wear it out. I'm literally using the same sprayer 10 years later that I used on the house back then. So, you know, in my experience, these things just don't wear out as long as you maintain them.
And you clean them fully, disassemble and clean it every time? What's your cleanup regimen?
So my rule is this. If you want the gun to last 30 years, you need to clean it once thoroughly at the end of each day.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if it's water-based, you literally can get this gun down to a 10-minute cleanup. Okay. Now, it takes a little bit of practice, and honestly, I've been doing this a long time, and I do it a lot. So if I just broke the gun down in front of you, that's not really going to prove anything. I'm the expert at gun breaking down. So what I'm saying is start being the expert at the gun breaking down, because when you take this gun apart, there are 9 parts in your hand, and 5 need cleaning.
Oh, cool.
Okay. It is not difficult. 9 parts to this gun, and they all make sense. There isn't a one of them that doesn't go back the way it's supposed to go back. Okay. And what it'll need cleaning is the air cap, the nozzle behind it, the fluid passage, the cup, and the needle.
Okay.
So what I heard was a challenge. If they all supposed to go back the same way, challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, if there's anyone,
And
I
I can be reached at tech support anytime you can't get your gun back together.
That is true. It's an easy 888 number to get a hold of you.
888-783-2612. It's been the same forever, and I seemingly am always there.
24/7, would you say?
Well, I'm not going to give you the 7. I feel 24 a lot, but actually, the 7 went away when COVID hit. That's what stopped me from being 7. I just don't do the traveling I've been doing. This is great, though. This is a great way to do this.
Absolutely. And you get a lot more people being able to see this and understand the system better. I know there's 2 things that I didn't get before this, so I've learned something today.
Good.
Because I've always watched you demonstrate, and I always see you kind of pushing in on that air cap, and I'm like, what's he doing? But I'm usually running around doing something else. So now today I actually get to find out what you're doing.
That's fun. Okay, so here's another one of those things. All right, here's a little tip for you guys. So I'm doing a demo at a show years ago, and I pick up my gun, and I just naturally do what I do. I've got my gun in my hand. I turn around and I start spraying for the customers, and a guy yells at me. He says, "What'd you just do?" And I said, "What do you mean? What did I just do?" He said, "You put your hand on the front of the gun. What'd you do?" And I had to think about it, okay, because I've been doing it for so long. It's just what I do.
Yeah.
My hand's on the front of the gun because my fingernail is scraping the dried paint off the nozzle. So even if I set the gun down for 5 minutes, if I'm moving, I just sprayed 3 doors. I need to set the gun down. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to move my 3 doors. It's going to take me a couple of minutes. I'm going to come back. There's probably a little bit of dried stuff on that tip. And if I pull that trigger, one of 2 things could happen. Either nothing comes or everything comes, neither of which is a good solution to the problem that can be solved by scraping it with your little fingernail. Okay? And that's good after a 2-hour break too. All right?
Yeah.
And this is it. That's it. Do that. Spray. Yeah, you got to watch me sometimes. I'm tricky.
Just becomes an involuntary action on yourself.
Well, it is. You need to point it out, and I'm glad you do.
So, do you have a 6000 series gun?
I do. So I've got both here. All right. So let's see. Let's do this. How do you get them both in the shot at once? So that's the difference, right? This is the pressure fed gun. Cup's on the bottom. Air goes down the clear tube into the cup, pressurizes the cup, pushes paint up the pickup tube into the gun head for spraying, comes out the nozzle in the center. The air cap is where the air comes out. This is a non-bleeder gun. On the 6003 system, they're non-bleeder guns, meaning the air doesn't come out until you pull the trigger. So it's also a 2-stage trigger. All right, and let's talk about stages now. It's a 3-stage turbine. That means there's 3 fans on the turbine moving air. That's what those stages means. This is a 2-stage trigger, meaning if you pull it a little bit, you get air. If you pull it all the way, you get fluid. Okay? Pull it a little bit, air, all the way, fluid. All right? So, again, non-bleeder gun, air's not coming out until you pull that trigger. This is the gravity gun. So it's a little bit different. The weight's on the top. Again, this is why my wrist hurts when I do this, because it's pulling down on me here, and I'm just not used to this for what I've been doing for 30 years or so. So, but it's the same gun itself, same handle, nozzle, needles. Everything's the same. The only difference is where the cup is located. And again, this is pressurized, because the greatest downfall to HVLP, honestly, is getting paint into the gun for spraying. High pressure systems, that's easy. You got high pressure, you can push paint where you want it.
Mm-hmm.
Low pressure systems, that's what makes it difficult. So that's why I honestly can't think of a company that doesn't pressurize their HVLP cups. That's what this tube is. That's a small amount of air bleeding off the main line, right? The air's coming through the gun here. Small amount bleeds off, goes through that tube, up into the cup. So again, even though gravity is drawing the paint down, we're adding pressure, so it's, again, pushing even more. The more paint you can get into that gun, the better it's going to spray.
And I assume that helps out a lot when you're doing, say, trying to spray something where you have to tilt the gun to the side, that helps just keep ensure that there's no stoppage of that flow of material.
Yes. Yeah. The more even you can keep the pressure in the gun, the better that spray pattern's always going to be, the more even the application. And that's what's important about HVLP. These are meant for fine finishing. So they're meant for that control and that precision. When I get a lot of calls about, my gun's not spraying. Well, we're not looking for a clog in the fluid. We're looking for a clog in the air. Okay, it's that air pressure is what people are missing most of the time, and it's this tube. It's something to do with this tube. So just to jump back a little bit here on the 5500, there's a brass fitting at the top that tube connects to. Okay, so one thing you can do is to test it, you're going to pull that tube off of this end, blow through it. Can you blow through it? If you can't, the bottom fitting's clogged. Put it back on. Can't see it, it's on the wrong side. Put the tube back on there, take it off the bottom of the cup, blow through it that way. Can you blow through that? If you can't, that's where the problem is. Now, why would there be a clog there? I don't know. Why is the earth round? If there's a reason. The reason is if you lay the gun down, fluid's going to get up in here. It's going to happen. Something's going to happen at some point. Some fluid's going to go somewhere. On the 5500, we don't put a check valve in there. It's a big tube. It's not a lot of pressure. So gravity tends to pull that material back down pretty easily. You can see in my tube, though, here, there's some blue paint from my last demo. All right. As long as that tube doesn't get clogged up, you still get the air pressure into the cup.
Okay.
Okay. On the 6003, we put a check valve in there. All right. Let me make it seen. Here it is. Here's the check valve. All right, and so for those of you that just bought this tool and are putting it together, see the check valve? It's got a flat side and it's got a beveled side. It's kind of shaped like an arrow. That should be pointing towards the cup. That's the airflow direction. Air only goes one way through this valve. It's supposed to prevent fluid from going past it. The reason for that is, and you see again here, I've got some blue paint. There's my demo. I got a little bit of material up in there, but it didn't go all the way up. It didn't get past the check valve, because if it did and it ends up here, it's in the air passage now. On this one, though, we've got a little complication, because look what happened here. We added another knob. All right, so not to confuse things, but on this one, the bottom knob is your fluid control. The top knob is the fan shape. It's not air control. Again, we still don't have air control. We are not controlling the amount of air in any way. This top knob is taking the place of the air cap on the 5500, where you push and click it in to change the pattern. This is what changes the pattern, and it gives you a little bit of control over how wide that pattern actually can be. Now, not a huge amount. You can't go from 1 inch to 12 inches based on this knob. That's not going to happen. But you can go from your detail pattern up to your fan pattern, or anywhere in between there, by using this knob to control that. It only moves about a quarter turn, maybe a third of a turn. I want to say to the left is your fan pattern, to the right is your detail. I may be wrong if you're on the other side of the world, but that's all there is to it.
All right, so the
please test all equipment before running it on your final project.
All right, so let's look at this air cap. Here we go. This air cap, right on the 5500, it locks into vertical or horizontal. This one rotates 360 degrees. Now, what's nice about that is that now I don't even have to tilt the gun this way to get a pattern at an angle. I can just do this and tilt my air cap to an angle. Now I can paint at that angle without, it's ergonomic, right? There's that scientific word. It's ergonomic. It doesn't hurt my wrist when I do this. It would hurt my wrist if it was stuck here and I had to do this through the whole project. But we're talking about specialized projects, handrails, I don't know, whatever angled weird thing you might have, but stuff comes up.
Yep.
That's the point.
So have you recently done a demo? Because I don't see that tip being very clean.
I've almost always recently done a demo, yes.
He forgot to flick that clean with his fingernail.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good.
All
I
right.
almost wonder if I do that. That's a good tip.
Actually, the okay, now you pissed me off. The paint you're seeing there is on the outside of the nozzle. It's not anywhere actually that's going to block anything.
Perfect.
Okay.
Everyone's a critic.
There's always one.
There's
Well-
always one.
Well, now that you've covered both of those guns, from your experience, what's the pros and cons of a bleeder versus a non-bleeder?
Okay. So things in my life tend to revolve around stories. So here's my story. I'm at a demo. I got 20 guys watching me. I'm spraying the 5500. Little guy scoots up in front of the crowd and he says, I got a question. I said, what's that? And he says, do you have a sprayer that won't put dust in my projects? I said, yes, sir. None of my sprayers put dust in your projects. He said, oh, no, I have that. And it always puts dust on my projects. And I said, well, can you show me how you spray then? Can you, and I said, here, the gun's loaded. Would you just show me what you're doing? And he said, sure. And he goes over and he takes the gun and he sprays on the paper that I'm demonstrating on. And he keeps the gun straight like this. And he does it just fine. And then he drops the gun down by his side at this angle. He's blowing his own dust up off the floor onto his project because it's a bleeder gun. So I said, it's a bleeder gun. Air is always coming out of it. You got to be careful where you're aiming it. And you got to sweep around your project 5 feet. I got a minimum rule here. Stand in the middle of your project and go 5 feet in every direction. That should be clean if you're going to spray there.
Okay.
That's a bare minimum. So I said to him, you can buy a $12 broom and you can sweep the floor, or we have this lovely 6003 system that is a non-bleeder that won't spray air onto your own dust and push it up into your project. And as I explained this, the poor guy, he's just shaking his head. He just kept shaking his head. And I said, what? He said, it's never going to happen. I said, what's never going to happen? He said, I'm never going to clean my shop.
Can't win them all.
So you can't win them all, but I don't know. I'm hoping he went out and bought a 6003 so he doesn't have that issue anymore with the bleeder. But honestly, again, there's no quality difference. That's not, bleeder, non-bleeder is not a quality difference. Bleeder, non-bleeder to me says more about the guy who doesn't own a broom. I've just always had a broom. I've never had a problem cleaning the area. And look, I'm Tim Mellon. I love the sawdust and the smell and everything. And, I don't want to clean my shop. It gets as filthy as it gets. But you know what? The day before I know I'm going to finish a set of cabinets, the shop gets cleaned.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it goes. You can't get away. Spraying moves material and it moves the environment around that material. And once you've entered dust into that environment, it comes towards you. It doesn't go away from you. I don't know why that is. I'm sure there's a scientific principle to that too.
Well, the electrostatic magnetic charge in the air tends to draw the dust towards the product, which also attracts flies and bugs as well.
Now, is there any
It does.
with a bleeder and a non-bleeder as far as on the system itself, on the motors, on the fans?
No. Here's the secret. They're all bleeders.
Okay.
It just depends where they bleed.
So they're going to
The 5500 bleeds at the gun. That's why we call it a bleeder gun. The 6003 bleeds at the turbine. That's why we call it a non-bleeder gun.
Okay. Still bleeding.
Okay. Still bleeding, just bleeding in a different place. The turbine's running, it's moving air. It doesn't stop, just because you're not pulling the trigger. The turbine still moves air. So if that air has no place to go, you can burn out the turbine pretty quickly.
Okay.
So yeah, the 6003 is actually bleeding internally instead of at the gun.
Because see, I've seen that comment online with these kind of systems that if you're not spraying and you leave it on, let's say you don't have like a remote control, but you also don't want to walk 25 feet over to turn off the unit, that people were saying, well, that just means it's just going to burn it up.
No,
not the
no,
case.
that's not the case. That's why they bleed. That's why these are designed for running constantly. This is the opposite of the air compressor that's meant to run for 2 minutes, build up pressure, and then hold that pressure in a tank for you until you need it. This is designed to run constantly and have a constant airflow at a set pressure.
Very good. Yeah, because see, Chris is in the market for an HVLP turbine system. So really, a lot of these that we're doing is kind of the questions that he had when he asked me about it. And it's like, well, maybe we'll just save it for the Earlex day, save it for the Fuji day, find out, the differences on it. Because I didn't know that the 6003 had more of that fine-tuned detail. I almost thought that the needle was kind of the same, like whatever you were doing originally, that had the same air cap set. So it's good to know that it has fan control.
So let's talk about needles a little bit. The 5500 comes with the 2 in the package, right? The 2 millimeters in the gun, the 1.5's the extra needle. That's for your fine finishing. Basically, the 1.5, if you're doing furniture, cabinetry, you want to finish in, say, 3 to 6 coats, right? The 1.5 puts out enough material for you to accomplish that. But if you're a musical instrument maker, piano refinisher, guitar builder, you might want to go a different route. You might want the 1 millimeter. That's going to give a finer atomization, a much thinner application. And this would be the case if you wanted to finish in maybe 10 to, say, 100 coats, where you want that super thin application so that you don't have to sand off so much in between applications. It dries faster, it's thinner, it's easier to sand, you get to that next coat quicker. So if you're doing 40 coats of lacquer on a guitar, you want the smaller needle to do that with.
Interesting.
All right. Now there's a 2.5 available also. That's the biggest needle we make for it. This needle is the opposite of quality. This is going to throw material in all directions. It's going to be spitty. Again, it might be fine if you're painting the side of the barn, the fence, staining the deck, but I use the 2.0 that's already in the gun for most of that anyway, and I've been fine. So I'm not. The 2.5 is not a needle I have in my arsenal.
Yeah.
On the 6003 set, though, we have 7 needles available. Nobody needs all 7, guys. That's a bit ridiculous. Most guys tend to do a certain type of project, so you can get the needles that are associated with that. Again, I'm a cabinet maker. The 1.3 comes in the gun. I use it all the time. I thin latex paint 5%. I thin water-based poly 5%. I don't thin lacquer. I don't thin stain. I use the 1.3. Okay. It's easy. I believe the package also has the 2.5. Again, this is the opposite of quality. This is like huge coverage, big swath, painting the side of the barn. That's fine. But again, there are other needles. So the smallest needles on the 6003 would be a 0.8 millimeter and then the 1 millimeter. Again, those would be musical instrument refinishing, something where you want a super high gloss, super fine, extremely smooth, factory looking finish. That's where you want to go. If you're spraying aniline dyes, anything really thin like that, again, the smaller needle and nozzle might suit you. If you end up doing, so the 1.3 comes with it, then we got the 1.5, 1.8, 2.0. So these are going from, say, fine finishing to painting your trim, okay? And there's gradations in here. There's a lot of variations. Not all paints are created equal. Not everybody will thin paint. So there's different reasons to use different ones. The thicker the material, technically the bigger the nozzle you want, but not if you're going for a fine finish. There's a breaking point. You're not going to get a fine finish out of a 2.5, but you're not going to paint the side of the barn with a 1.0. So there's variation in there. We have charts. You can contact me again at the office. Actually, you can chat with me on Earlex.com. I'm there Monday through Friday. I have charts and graphs that I can show you the different needles for different situations, different finishes. But there's a wide variety. Again, nobody needs all 7 for the 6003. I have 3, and they take care of everything I need to do.
It'd be nice. Would you be able to email me those charts? We can then put them on our website with the needles to kind of help better tell people maybe what they're looking for. Would that be all right?
Absolutely, sure can.
Yeah, I don't want to take away from your online chat because we know how that goes. We Chris and I are on ours as the technical side of it. We have all of our customer service reps on there, but at the same time, we know exactly about, copy and pasting the same presentation or the same documentation to different customers.
Yeah, I have files and files of stuff.
Chat line currently turned off during the Klingspor's Woodworking Shop Extravaganza virtual.
Yeah, we had to turn it off during this though. So we got a break. So Sam, anything else that you can think of to talk about those two products? Do you have gaskets? That is something I did want to ask. Is there a gasket on the cups?
Yes. So all guns are going to have some kind of cup gasket, and it's going to be up here in the edge, the rim of the lid, the cup lid. And in this case, it's foam material. I'm so old that when I started out, these were still made of leather. But they went through some variations. They've all ended up some kind of foam that's resistant to solvents and whatnot. And basically, same thing on both guns. You destroy it when you're taking it out, and the new one press fits in real nice and tight and smooth and easy. So it's not hard to do. Guys are always wondering how to get it out. Well, not carefully, okay? Just take a screwdriver and stick it under there and rip it out, because you don't need it anymore if you're replacing it. It never needs to come out to be cleaned. It can stay right there to be cleaned. That's fine, okay? Now, occasionally, so let's talk about maintenance while we're here.
Yeah.
I use, the lubricant I use on the gun is mineral oil. You can buy it just about anywhere. Any grocery store, almost any, gas station will have a small bottle of it. It's a baby product. You can buy baby oil, is the same thing. It just smells pretty. Vaseline works. Okay. But I bought, what did I buy? A 6-ounce bottle of mineral oil 15 years ago, and I'm still using it, okay, because it only takes a couple of drops. So on that gasket, after I've cleaned a few times and used it a few times, I'll put some mineral oil on my finger and I'll just wipe it around on that gasket. What it'll do is it'll absorb in a little bit and it'll keep it soft and pliable, okay? So that's why you want to keep this clean, is because if you get this caked in with paint, you're not going to get a good seal when it pushes up against the cup. All right, so you want to keep that clean and slightly lubricated with that mineral oil, and they'll last you for years. Again, this one's probably 8 years old in this gun here, and no problems with it. The only other thing I lubricate on the gun, I lubricate anything that's threaded. So on the front of the gun here, I've got an aluminum retaining ring, and it's on a brass thread. So there's an oxidation that happens when you get these two things wet and they're next to each other. And when you take this off, that brass is going to look, it's oxidized. It's going to look kind of whitish, and it's going to be a little bit rough getting this off. So you just coat that with some mineral oil. Oh, it's beautiful. It's baby smooth again. Hey, baby oil. It's smooth again. It just twists nice. It's so nice and smooth. I'm telling you, mineral oil's the stuff you want to use here. The only other thing I lubricate then, obviously these threads too, back here. Again, anything that's threaded, I'm gonna put that lube on. See that spring there, guys? You want to watch for that spring. If that spring springs away, you're sprung for the day. So you want to put that someplace where you're not going to lose it. But this is the needle you pull out here. All right, see the needle sticking out? You just pull it out. Now, this is all you're cleaning on the needle from the barrel forward to the point. That's where paint or stain or whatever it is you were using, that's where it's going to be. So basically, this is all you're cleaning. Let's see, I had a rag here, Here it is. And once you clean it, you wipe it off. It's nice and clean. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of baby oil. I basically just put a little bit on my finger, and I wipe it on the long, pointy end of the needle. And I just kind of distribute it as evenly as I can. I don't need a lot on here. I just need a nice even coat across the whole thing. Takes me about that long. Now what happens is I'm going to push the needle back into the gun. The needle goes past gland seals that are right here. See that little nut? That nut? Can't see it. Can you see it?
Yeah, you can see it.
That nut, that's called the gland nut. The gland seals are behind it. when you push the needle into the gun, it goes through that nut, see that, and into the nozzle. Now what just happened is all that oil came off the needle and is on those seals.
I was about to ask what would happen if you were doing a water-based finish. So it cleans it off as it goes past those seals.
Cleans it off as it goes past it. And the reason we use mineral oil is that it's inert. It's not going to affect your finish. It's not going to do a thing. It will not cause any contamination or fisheye or any issues. Mineral oil is that answer. Okay, 3-in-1 is not what you use here. WD-40 is not what you use here. It's literally putting fish in your finish.
Now, do you get that a lot? People using WD-40?
I get it often enough.
That's good enough.
That it's upsetting to me. Here's a good one. Here's another story for you. How long do I have? No, this is short. Guy calls me up. He's got this gun. He says, "Well, I've been using it for a year. It's been great. Never had a problem with it. And then I cleaned it, and now it doesn't work this time." And I'm like, "Well, why'd you say you cleaned it like that? Hadn't you ever cleaned it before?" He said, "Oh no, I always cleaned it." He said, "But this time I really wanted to get in there and do a super good cleaning." And he said, "So I let it soak in kerosene over the weekend."
Okay.
Okay. So, rule number 1, guys, no kerosene in your wood shop. Okay? And I know where we all live, but no kerosene in the wood shop, guys. It's the wrong place for it. Those two things don't go together well. Neither does kerosene in any equipment like this, okay? Because this is, it's got seals. It has rubber parts and plastic parts and foam parts. And, his had blue paint on it, but it didn't anymore.
Wow.
And so,
Cleaned it out.
yeah, it just took it right off. That's. And actually, if you guys clean your gun good enough, at some point, some of that starts to come off anyway. But it's nice and pretty silver underneath too. It's a pretty gun either way.
So what do you recommend? Soaking it in water, soap in water?
Okay, soaking. Here's rule number 2. Soaking is a bad word when you're talking about cleaning a gun, because it means that either you think something is wrong, or something is about to go wrong. Okay?
Okay.
So we'll go back to I think this is the first thing we talked about today. Clean up once at the end of the day. That's all you need to do. The gun will last you 30 years. But here's what's important. Break the gun down, actually clean all the individual parts, reassemble the gun, put some cleaner in the gun, water or mineral spirits, lacquer thinner, depending on what you were spraying. Put some in the gun, maybe an inch in the bottom of that cup. Spray that through to make sure it's clear. Take the cup off that gun and let it dry like that. All right? Did you hear the word soak anywhere in there?
Nope.
No. So, soaking means that you walked away from the gun for a day, okay, and came back to it and thought, "Oh, wow, how am I going to get this stuff off there?" Well, the right answer is elbow grease, not soaking. Even if you have an issue, you're better off just attacking it rather than letting it sit and soak, because soaking doesn't do anything. Dried latex paint is not affected by soaking, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But denatured alcohol will take it right off. So, now, again, I'm more of a Tim Allen kind of guy. I don't have the spotless shop. I don't clean my guns to within an inch of their life. If there's some paint on the outside, I'm okay with that. The inside of that gun needs to be clean. Okay. I get paint on my hose, on my turbine. That's inconsequential. That has no effect on the quality of the project I'm doing. I don't worry about that stuff. I'm not all wrapped up in that. I don't purposely turn paint on my hose, but again,
overspray.
It's war wounds. I mean, if there's not some material on your sprayer, you're not using it enough, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't worry about the outside too much. The inside of the gun absolutely needs to be cleaned every time you use it.
All right, and what's in the gun, or the it's a gun cleaning kit?
Oh, that would have been good to have. So I don't have one in front of me, but the gun cleaning kit has a few brushes. It's got a couple of wire pokers. It does have a tub of mineral-based grease. It kind of looks like earwax, but it's still the same stuff. And again, that tub of grease, it's going to roll off your bench and disappear before you ever use it all. So just go down to the store and get the, there it is, beautiful. Go down to the store, get the mineral oil. But yeah, there's a couple of brushes in there that, so the toothbrush, the wooden one at the end, I use that all the time. The pokers are on that keychain right next to it. The keychain up at the top, yeah, those pokers, my favorite thing in the kit. They bend and they have a little bit of grit on the end. So when they go through the holes in the air cap, you can really ream those little tiny holes out, get them clean. That little tiny brush that's next to it, I use occasionally for, you know, the smaller portions. It's a fairly stiff brush, so you can get in there pretty well. I don't use that next one, that one there, I don't use that. But the following one I use all the time, that's called a screw brush. Those, the bristles on that are actually threaded. It's in a thread pattern. So you actually push that up into the pickup tube and twist it. You screw it in and it'll keep moving up the tube. You push it in as far as you possibly can, put your finger through the loop at the end and just rip it out. If there is anything in that tube, it is coming out with that brush. The Christmas tree brush next to that is great for the nozzle or, you know, just poking around in the little holes and whatnot. But yeah, overall, it's a great kit. I use 90% of it probably there.
No, and it's reasonably priced at $15 to be able to keep your kit clean. Yeah. And a lot of people think, oh, I'll just soak it or I'll just run something through it. But having those brushes is key. The poker though, like the small.
Yeah, the two wire pokers, indispensable.
Absolutely. Because if it comes down to where you got paint or you put it on the side or whatever happened and you cover up those holes in the air nozzle, that's perfect time to clean those out.
Yeah.
Very good. Anything else maintenance wise that you wanted to know, Chris? What about the filters on the turbine unit itself?
Okay, the filter on the turbine in front of you there is on the bottom. So the biggest problem guys run into with this is they set the turbine on a drop cloth. So the 5500 unit draws air from the bottom, guys. You need to keep it clear. It needs to be on a hard, clean surface. There is a little foam filter on there. I want to say it's, I don't know, 3.5, 4 inches. We have them. I guess you guys can access them there. The filter needs to be replaced when you can't clean it anymore. And if you're doing it right, it's mostly covered in sawdust, which can be rinsed out for the most part. You know, it should be covered in dust at the end of the day. There is going to be some paint on it. If you're in an enclosed small area and you're spraying a lot and it's a color, some of it gets drawn back up into the air. You're moving 42 CFM with that sprayer. So some of that ends up back on that filter. But again, it's just a foam filter, pulls right out, slap a new one in there, a couple of bucks. 6003 has 2 filters, one at each end of the turbine. It's a fairly thick square foam filter, and you definitely want to have them in place. And same deal, they rinse out of the dust. They don't rinse out of the paint. So once they're clogged up, they need to be replaced. I don't recommend, so some guys, I had a guy wrap his t-shirt around the unit once, and the unit burned out in the first hour. And he sent me a picture saying the unit burned out. And I said, well, send me a picture of your setup so I can see it. And the picture had his t-shirt wrapped around the unit. I said, you can't do that. The filters we put in it are designed for it, and they catch what needs to be caught. You don't want to put a secondary filter in front of that or anything extra in way of airflow there.
Okay. So that voids the warranty, you're saying?
I'm saying that's a real problem for the warranty. Yes, sir.
I can imagine. I mean, you know, that's why the filters are there in place.
Right.
Anything else you can think of that you wanted to know?
I don't know. Not really.
Okay. Well, Sam, we want to thank you very much for joining us today, taking the time to answer our questions and putting up with our attitudes and sarcasticness.
It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I'm happy to do it this way a lot.
Yep. This might be the future of where we're going.
Yep. And if you're watching this video after the fact, if you've got any questions or comments, leave them below, and we'll be more than happy to try to get those responded as quick as possible.
Yep.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And coming up today at 3:00, we're also going to have Cuts-All power carving. So therefore, you can power carve your project and then finish it with the Earlex system.
Sounds great.
All right.
Good
Well,
luck, guys. Have a good day.
you too.
Thank you. See you.